I'm Kim Jake Tiani. Welcome to Cooler Facts, the show that's full of surprising facts about the world around us. Science, technology, and nature. The first surprise is how we're telling you our stories. Get ready for a fun, fast-paced tour of short little video bits. Each one will leave you with something new. From an insect that puts skunks to shame, to a surprising place on Earth that hasn't seen rain in over 2 million years. Plus, the fastest things on the planet. But first, an animal with the deadliest bite on Earth.
Just about every animal under the sun has teeth, but some bites are a whole lot scarier than others. Consider the African lion. It has a fearsome bite PSI force, that's bite per pound square inch force. It's calculated based on the size of the animal's mouth. The lion's is estimated at over 4,000 pounds. That's like having a 4x4 resting on the top of the tooth as it penetrates the flesh. Its canine teeth are spaced in a way that they can slip between the cervical vertebrae of their prey and sever the spinal cord. Their back teeth, or carnassials, work like a pair of scissors, cutting through skin and tendon. Unlike humans, its jaw cannot move side to side, which helps it get through flesh even more efficiently. And they're fast. A lion can accelerate to a speed of 60 kilometers per hour in less than a minute. Its tongue can also do major damage. It's covered in hard, spiny papillae, dense mounds of skin cells that begin the digestion process. With a surface as rough as sandpaper, a lion's tongue can separate meat from bones. It can also draw blood with a single lick. Inside a lion's stomach, its gastric juices have the same pH as battery acid, so the king of the jungle doesn't have to chew before it swallows. A great white shark doesn't waste a lot of time chewing either. Its bite is so big, it can take in almost 15 kilos of flesh in one chomp. And like most toothy predators, the shark has other tools in its arsenal to add insult to injury. Like its awesome sense of smell. So precise, it can detect a single drop of blood in an Olympic-sized pool full of water. That's because sharks devote a huge part of their brain to powers of smell. And that's not all. Sharks also have sensory pores on their heads called ampullae of Lorenzini. These detect the electrical fields of prey, sensing an animal's heartbeat from a meter. Then there's the cougar. It has a bite so powerful it can bring down a small horse and drag it the length of a football field. We know the king cobra has some scary fangs, sharp enough to penetrate flesh like a hypodermic needle. It's what comes out of those fangs that's really unnerving: venom. And this snake can deliver enough in one bite to kill an elephant, or 20 people. Snake venom is actually a modified saliva. It comes from glands situated on each side of the head, below and behind the eye. Muscles attached to these reservoirs force the venom through the snake's tubular fangs. Venom contains neurotoxins, deadly proteins that play a key role in immobilizing prey by causing disorientation, paralyzing the animal, and slowing its breathing. When in attack mode, the cobra sprays twin jets of deadly poison as far as 2 meters. No surprise that the folks who handle them wear goggles. The Komodo dragon's teeth are scary all on their own. Big, curved, and serrated like a bread knife, they rip through flesh with ease. And if its teeth don't do the job, its saliva will. Should an animal manage to escape an attack, the dragon's spit contains bacteria that cause an infection that will probably kill it within a week. Thus weakened, other dragons will move in on this easy prey. One of the most vicious bites in nature belongs to the Tasmanian devil. Uninterrupted, devils can eat up to 40% of their body weight in half an hour. Its powerful jaws and teeth allow it to completely devour its prey, bones, fur, and all. Terrifying? Absolutely. But still not the deadliest bite in the animal kingdom. That dubious honor belongs to a creature that kills some 2 million people a year. One that can drink twice its weight in blood. It wreaks havoc by transmitting killer malaria parasites to its victim. That, of course, would be the tiny mosquito.
I'll tell you one thing, I hate mosquitoes. But I have a lot more respect for bugs, especially after I heard about the Bombardier beetle.
Who is really taking over the Earth? With 1 million known species and at least 6 million more to name, insects are the most diverse group of animals on the Earth. The secret to their success? Insects have developed the most ingenious traits to survive. It's exactly why you don't want them for house guests. Take the Bombardier beetle. Like most beetles, it's vulnerable to attack because it can't open its wings quickly. So it needs an effective defense mechanism. The Bombardier has a deadly ability to spray 700 rounds of acid per second in different directions from its butt. Sound like science fiction? Glands in its abdomen produce boiling hot formic acid at 100 degrees Celsius. Makes a skunk look like a lightweight. There's a way to compare insect stings. U.S. entomologist Justin O. Schmidt has invented a sting index from 0 to 4. At 0, a sweat bee's gentle tingle barely registers, but a yellow jacket's burning sting rates a 2. The chart topper is the bullet ant. At over 4.0, this nasty insect from the rainforests of Nicaragua to Paraguay delivers a paralyzing sting of intense pain. It's like walking over flaming charcoal with a 3-inch rusty nail in your heel. Sometimes even a bite isn't needed to kill. A millipede produces a stench powerful enough to kill a mouse. Its stink glands unleash lethal fluids that contain chlorine and hydrogen cyanide, and they protect their own. Millipedes use the same noxious fluids to cover their eggs and protect them against predators. Other insects have more than 1,000 legs to worry about, like the termite queen. A prolific baby maker, she can give birth to over 30,000 offspring a day. Survival by numbers. And she is not as prolific as the aphid. Almost all aphids are female, but don't even bother with sex to reproduce. Many are born pregnant. It's mind-blowing, but if all aphids were to survive, there would be 10 to the power of 27. That's 27 zeros, enough to cover the United States 4.5 meters deep in aphids. Other insects endure because they can find each other to mate. The male moth's nerve cells can detect minute amounts of female pheromone over 9 kilometers upwind. Like a bionic bloodhound, the moth zigzags across the wind as he tracks the plume of chemicals. Other insects use their keen perception to find a safe place to lay eggs. The Melanophila beetle has discovered that a fire is a hot commodity. While a healthy pine tree's natural chemicals will poison the beetle larvae or drown them in sticky resin, a fire-damaged tree lacks those natural defenses. This beetle has evolved special organs under its armpits that act as ultraviolet light detectors. Against the tide of the escaping animals, the beetle radars in on a forest fire and finds a vulnerable tree to burrow in and lay its eggs. Given the ways they've adapted, it's no surprise that insects are the fastest-growing population in the world. And the king of the survivors is the most loathed of them all, la cucaracha. Even when a cockroach's head is cut off, it can still live for 9 days. With its limited circulatory system, the body needs little or no blood. It can even endure without food. With traits like these, it's no wonder they rule the world.
When cockroaches rule the Earth, I'll be looking for a new planet. When we come back, an object that weighs more than 1 million elephants. A lot more. Now that's heavy. Welcome back to Cooler Facts. Humans like building things on a grand scale. The bigger, the better. Well, we at Cooler Facts are going to supersize you. When we say big, we mean big. Like 5,700 Wembley stadiums big.
The human race loves to build big. The world's heaviest building is the Palace of the Parliament in Bucharest, Romania. It weighs an amazing 700,000 metric tons. That's roughly the same as a herd of African elephants, 1,300,000 strong. The largest man-made structure is the Great Wall of China. It is 6,400 kilometers long, roughly the same distance as driving from Chicago to Los Angeles and back. The Great Wall also averages a width of 6.5 meters, which gives it a total footprint of about 41 million square meters. That's about 5,700 times the area taken up by the pitch at London's new Wembley Stadium. In fact, you could fit 5 Wembley stadiums end-to-end in one of the world's biggest man-made holes, which is located in Mirna, Siberia. Measuring a whopping 525 meters deep and over a kilometer across, it's a diamond mine with a difference. Dangerous air currents inside the hole create a suction effect, which is so strong it has caused a number of helicopters to crash. Crashing of a different kind is something they do well in the Netherlands, where they set the world domino toppling record with over 4 million domino tiles. Lined up in a row, they stretched on for 100 kilometers. Not bad for a game that was originally invented as a math puzzle in 1120 AD.
You know, for a place that's basically a frozen wasteland of ice, Antarctica is a pretty compelling and vibrant place. Why else would one of the world's biggest research centers be there?
The southern polar ice cap may be the coldest, driest, and windiest place on Earth, but Antarctica is anything but boring. The amount of ice alone is astonishing. 30 million cubic kilometers of it. Chop it all up, and every person on Earth would get a chunk the size of the Great Pyramid at Giza. Wow! If Antarctica's ice sheets melted, the world's oceans would rise by 60 meters, everywhere. Most of the ice rests on rock. What floats are called ice shelves. Ice that breaks free becomes icebergs. 90% of an iceberg floats beneath the surface of the water. Antarctica is home to the world's largest icebergs, including the B-15A. Roughly the size of Luxembourg, it broke off from the Ross Ice Shelf in 2000. Antarctica isn't all ice. Its inland parts are covered in dry valleys. With almost zero precipitation, this is actually the largest desert on Earth. It has not rained in the valleys for 2 million years. Antarctica is actually the best place in the world to find meteorites. Dark meteorites show up against the white expanse of ice and snow and don't get covered by vegetation. But there's more than just ice and desert. It's home to blue whales. During the feeding season in Antarctica, one whale eats about 4 million krill a day, or 3,600 kilograms every day for 6 months. The daily intake would feed a human for about 4 years. Antarctica is also teeming with scientists. The ice has made it the world's biggest laboratory. Because it's been here for thousands of years, and the coverage is so deep, it tells the story of the Earth's past. If you want to know what the temperature was 50,000 years ago, all you have to do is find a layer of ice that old, then just drill a hole in it, find an air bubble, and measure the CO2. More modern ice cores are proof of a rapidly warming planet, resulting in this, the snapping off of ice shelves. In 2002, the Larsen B shelf disintegrated. At 3,000 square kilometers, this ice cube was the size of Rhode Island. But when it comes to the geological drama of the Antarctic, it was only the tip of the iceberg.
I can't believe there's a place on Earth where it hasn't rained in over 2 million years. Well, from Earth years to light years, have you ever wondered how long it takes light to travel from the sun to us? Those warming, cooler facts coming right up. Hi, I'm Kim Jake Tiani. Welcome back to Cooler Facts. Pretty fast, eh? Well, that's nothing compared to some of the fastest things on Earth, including a common occurrence that will blow you away.
In spite of what race fans believe, it doesn't take a checkered flag to identify a speed champion. It's time to rethink our concept of speed and to find it in unusual places. The most scientific measure of speed and distance in space is the speed of light. Every day, it takes light just over 8 minutes to travel 146 million kilometers from the sun to warm the Earth. Closer to home, light needs only a second to travel from the Earth to the Moon, less than the average heartbeat. A car traveling 100 kilometers per hour non-stop would require almost 5.5 months to travel the same distance. Distances in space are measured by the time it takes light to travel. NASA's Hubble telescope recently discovered a supernova in one of the closest galaxies, only 7,500 light-years away. That's just a blink in the history of the Earth. In a galaxy less far away, your body is an example of a high-speed system. Every second, your body creates and kills up to 10 million red blood cells. That's 144 times as many shares as are traded per second on the New York Stock Exchange. Now consider this big deal. A sneeze travels out of your mouth at 160 kilometers per hour. This reflex response involves muscles in your face, throat, and chest. It's an incredible force. Sneezing puts such tremendous stress on your body that it's impossible to keep your eyes open. Beards are the fastest growing hairs on the human body. If the average man never trimmed his beard, it would grow to nearly 10 meters long in his lifetime. Before stroking your chin to think about that one, some human reactions hit speeds that defy thought. Since 1982, Ernie Hill has held the record for getting a signal, then drawing a pistol from a standing position and firing a shot in .208 seconds. It's hard to believe, because a reaction time of less than 0.1 of a second for Olympic sprinters is considered a false start. The time between the starting gun firing and the first kick off the start blocks is measured with electronic sensors. It takes 0.1 of a second for the sound of the starter's pistol to reach the runner's ears and for a human to react to it. And there's nothing exclusive about top speeds in humans. A tiny 6mm insect known as a froghopper can jump so quickly that it generates a G-force of more than 400 gravities. An astronaut never feels more than 5 gravities to reach orbit. When the bug jumps, its leg muscles explode with a force to send it moving 4 meters per second. That's 140 times the force of a human high jumper. You don't even need legs to spring fast. There is a unique Malaysian snake that is adapted to living in the dark, and it feeds on bats. The cave racer can strike out into the air so fast that it never gets detected by the bat's natural radar system. You can find astonishing speeds lurking throughout space and nature, and sometimes even radar won't help you spot it.
So that's why snakes can never get speeding tickets. After the break, we're speeding off to a place where there's a storm raging the size of 3 Earths. We'll be right back. When it comes to our solar system, Mars gets its fair share of attention and is definitely on everyone's radar. But it can't hold a candle compared to the planet that weighs twice as much as all the other planets combined.
Showy, brash, and utterly spectacular, Jupiter is the Las Vegas of planets. Everything about it is excessive. For starters, there's its size. The 5th planet from the Sun is truly colossal. 1,000 Earths could fit inside it. In terms of mass, it outweighs all the other planets combined, ×2. Then there's this, its Great Red Spot. This storm of swirling gas has been raging for hundreds of years. 3 Earths would fit within its boundaries. Jupiter's atmospheric pressure is beyond comprehension, many millions of times greater than ours. The result? Giant swirling oceans of liquid metallic hydrogen that cover it, a gassy molten surface that will forever prevent us from landing on it. Jupiter's brand of hydrogen is unknown to us here on Earth. The ordinary variety is one of Earth's most abundant elements, but never in metallic form. In the high-pressure maelstrom of Jupiter, hydrogen turns to a solid. Because metallic hydrogen is a superconductor of electricity, Jupiter has an awesome magnetosphere. So epically huge, it belongs in the pages of science fiction. This giant magnetic bubble could engulf the Sun. If we could see it from Earth, it would look several times larger than the Moon. It also has a magnetic tail stretching beyond Saturn's orbit, more than 1 billion kilometers away. That's the distance from the Earth to the Moon, times 2,700. Jupiter's magnetic pull has earned it the reputation as vacuum cleaner of the solar system, sucking in comets, asteroids, and meteorites, ones that could do planet Earth major damage. Jupiter is so complex, it's almost its own little solar system. About 63 moons, asteroids, and comets circulate in its orbit. Officially, it has 16 moons, though likely many more. One of them, Io, is the most volcanically active place in the solar system. On its surface are about 200 volcanic caldera, giant basin-like depressions resulting from volcanic explosions. Each one is bigger than 20 kilometers. That's more than twice the height of Mount St. Helens. Io's gravity is low, just 1/6 of planet Earth's. If Old Faithful were here, it would fly up 30 kilometers. Low gravity means volcanic plumes fly fast and furious, shooting up at speeds of 1 kilometer a second, twice as fast as a speeding bullet, soaring to heights in excess of 250 kilometers. So what makes Io so hot under the collar? Tides, though not the kind we know on Earth. The gravitational fields of Jupiter raise tidal bulges in Io's crust as high as a 30-story building. As Io orbits Jupiter, the bulges move, flexing the crust and heating its interior, hence the 24/7 fireworks display. Pretty impressive for one little Jovian moon. But hey, that's Jupiter for you, always going over the top.
Well, you gotta love a planet that's over the top. And now we're filled to the top as the show that puts its own twist on science, nature, and technology comes to an end. But there are more cool facts out there, like glow-in-the-dark animals, stunning eruptions, and a river that flows backwards. Catch you next time. I'm Kim Tiani. Hi, I'm Kim Tiani. Welcome to Cooler Facts, the show that's full of surprising facts about the world around us, science, nature, and technology. Now, the first fact you need to know is that this show has a bit of a different look. Get ready for a fun, fast-paced tour of short computer-animated bits. Each one will leave you looking at the world in a brand new way. Today, have you ever wondered how fast Mach 1 is? You'll meet a sea creature that's over 400 years old and an earthquake so powerful it caused a river to flow backwards. But first, we all know that the Olympics is all about the athletes and Olympic spirit, but what about all that technology?
What with the pressure of all the eyeballs on Earth watching Olympic athletes compete, the Summer Games often push the limits of building and engineering technology. Check out the Sydney Stadium that was built for the 2000 Olympics. At maximum capacity, it seats 115,000 spectators. If for some crazy reason you wanted to stack those chairs, the pile would be almost 69 kilometers high, more than 7 times the height of Mount Everest. Wow! Even keeping the Olympic torches lit was a technological achievement. There were 11,500 of them at the 2000 Games, which used a total of 922 kilograms of gas. That's the same amount of propane as 85 gas barbecues. The runners carried the original flame from its origins at Olympia, Greece to Sydney Stadium, a journey of 27,000 kilometers, more than half the circumference of the Earth. The highlight of building sophistication is Beijing's National Swim Center, nicknamed the Water Cube. The cube is made of a steel frame shaped like giant soap bubbles covered with a transparent super lightweight Teflon shell. The result is energy efficient. 90% of the solar energy falling on the building is trapped within the structure and heats the pools and the interior. The pool is wired with monitors that detect the winner by less than 1/100th of a second difference. The naked eye can't help spot the leader. A human blink takes 3/10ths of a second. There are sensors embedded inside the starting blocks and underwater touchpads at the end of the lane. The touchpads are ridged to ensure the swimmer's fingertip, not the force of the water the swimmer is displacing, trips the sensor. The sensors are backed up by cameras that take 100 pictures a second. There's seeing, and then there's tracking. Starting in 2000, marathon runners wore microchips tied to the laces of their shoes. Every 7 kilometers, the runners passed by an antenna that recorded their distance and speed. In fact, the longest race of the Olympics may be more exhausting than you think. The original marathon was set at exactly 26 miles, but during the London Olympics of 1908, organizers decided that the royal family needed a better view of the finish line. They added an extra 385 yards to the race so the finish line would be in front of the royal box. And it's been 26 miles and 385 yards long ever since. 42.195 kilometers. It's unlikely the Olympics will ever move the finish line again for a single person. Too many eyes will be watching. The Beijing Games in 2008 are expected to attract 1 billion people. That's 1/6 of the planet.
Watching those athletes break all those records is probably the best entertainment around. Breaking records, well, that's the focus of our next cooler fact. Breaking the sound barrier. Welcome to a world where a piece of dirt can weigh as much as an elephant.
Ever since we humans have been upright and walking, there has been an eternal quest to be the fastest human on Earth. The Holy Grail is traveling at Mach 1, faster than the speed of sound, just over 1,200 kilometers per hour. That's more than 300 meters per second. Roughly 10 times the speed of tennis great Roger Federer's serve. At that speed, you could drive to the moon in about 2 weeks. The place to attempt to go Mach 1 is here, in Nevada's Black Rock Desert. With a surface as smooth as a tabletop, it's the heart of land speed racing. This is where in 1965, Craig Breedlove broke a 960 kilometer per hour speed barrier in his Spirit of America, a 3-wheeler powered by a J-47 jet engine. Going Mach 1 in an airplane isn't nearly as dangerous. On the ground, shock waves can launch a vehicle airborne. Traveling that fast, a piece of dirt the size of a quarter and stuck to the wheel rim weighs as much as 700 kilos. Years later, in 1996, Breedlove tried again. He was aiming for a 1,000 kilometer per hour cruising speed, and his speedometer rose close to 1,300 K, faster than any car had ever attempted to go. Suddenly, a wicked crosswind struck him, jacking the car up on its forward and side wheels. The wheels acted like a giant off-kilter gyroscope, forcing the vehicle off course. Breedlove was hurtling blind, but he kept his cool and was able to walk away. The good news, he broke the sound barrier. The bad news, it didn't count. Land speed rules require drivers to make the 1.7K run twice. In 1997, Royal Air Force pilot Andy Green stole Breedlove's thunder. He hit the elusive Mach 1 mark in this, his Thrust SSC. It's powered by 2 Rolls-Royce jet engines, producing a total of 100,000 pounds of thrust. That's the power of 1,000 Ford Escorts, or a 747 at cruising altitude. Breedlove's dreams of breaking the sound barrier again went up in smoke. He ran out of money and energy. Attempting to break the land speed record takes genius, courage, and determination. But actually going transonic is somewhere in the realm of the miraculous.
Looks like breaking Mach 1 is going to be one tough record indeed. Coming up, the location of one of the world's biggest garbage dumps, and you'd never guess where it is. Hey, welcome back to Cooler Facts. I'm Kim Jake Tiani. Now, nothing turns you into a recycling enthusiast like seeing a huge pile of garbage, especially if it's in the middle of nature. Here's one that's waterlogged and as heavy as 17 aircraft carriers.
The calming blue serenity of the Pacific Ocean. But look under the surface. Welcome to the giant toilet bowl of plastic. About 1,000 kilometers north of Hawaii, in the Pacific Ocean, floats a massive plastic garbage that is so big, it has an area twice the size of Texas. Its nickname is the Eastern Garbage Patch, and it never disappears. The garbage gets trapped there because of an ocean phenomenon called the North Pacific Subtropical Gyre. A combination of high-pressure air and clockwise water currents ensnares garbage that floats in and won't let it out. Based on 2007 water samples, there's an estimated 6 kilograms of plastic for every kilogram of naturally occurring plankton trapped in the patch. And there are similar trash traps in other oceans, in the South Pacific, the North and South Atlantic, and the Indian Ocean. We produce around 100 million tons of plastic each year. 10% of it ends up in the sea, and it gets into everything. Plastic sheeting has been discovered in the stomachs of sperm whales. Dutch researchers dissected a seabird that contained over 1,600 pieces of plastic. The problem is that plastic is bio-inert. The durability and stability that makes plastics so useful to consumers also makes them a problem in marine environments. Plastic only breaks down into fragments that end up in the food chain, to be eaten by seabirds and marine life. It gets worse. Not all plastic floats. Around 70% of plastic discarded at sea sinks to the bottom, creating a garbage dump on the sea floor. In the North Sea, Dutch scientists counted around 110 pieces of litter for every square kilometer of seabed. 600,000 tons in the North Sea alone. That's the weight of 17 aircraft carriers. In addition to plastic garbage, industrial runoff like fertilizers or sewage that flow into the coastal regions makes the ocean even more of a deadly garbage dump. The technical term is creeping dead zones. That's what happens when pollution causes the water at the sea floor to become anoxic, meaning it contains almost no dissolved oxygen. What happens is garbage chemicals cause coastal algae to bloom to excess, and they produce oxygen. In response, seafloor bacteria consume all of it and exhaust the dissolved oxygen in the water. It kills the environment for other marine life. One of the most extreme dead zones is in the Gulf of Mexico, where the Mississippi River releases high volumes of fertilizers from the U.S. agricultural heartlands. Another strange item in the ocean's garbage dump is junk that has fallen from space. In 2006, the Russian Progress M56 cargo ship removed old equipment from the International Space Station. Most of the ship and load burned up during re-entry, but surviving fragments fell into the Central Pacific. Called the Spaceship Graveyard, it's the same spot where bits of the Mir space station fell in 2000. In theory, magnets could find and retrieve the spaceship's metal fragments, but there's no effective method to collect floating plastic. It may be a long time before we unclog this giant toilet and return it to a more pristine blue.
Let's hope for a return to that pristine blue. Fortunately, it's not all bad news when it comes to the ocean, especially if you go deep.
One of the greatest mysteries on Earth lies at the bottom of the ocean. In fact, it is the bottom of the ocean. The pitch-black depths of the ocean remain one of the final frontiers. Would you believe there are more maps of the moon than there are of the deep ocean? We've explored only 0.0001% of the deep ocean floor. In 1960, just off the coast of the Philippines, the U.S. Navy used a French sub, the Trieste, to be the first to reach the deepest point of the Pacific Ocean, the Challenger Deep, located in the Marianas Trench. This point of the trench is 11 kilometers deep. That's over 1,400 meters deeper than Mount Everest is tall. These deep waters can expose the ocean to the hot interior of the Earth. In 1977, scientists discovered hot springs jetting out of the ocean floor off the Galapagos Islands. Down 2.5 kilometers, these underwater smokestacks spew burning hot fluids full of minerals. But despite the heat, the water doesn't boil. That's because the weight of the ocean creates such a pressure that it raises the water's boiling point above 380 degrees Celsius. Amazingly, the pitch-dark hot waters are teeming with sea life, such as giant tube worms, lanternfish, pink sea urchins, and spider crabs. These life forms survive by a process called chemosynthesis. They have a way of converting carbon molecules into organic matter. New imaging technology is also revealing how sea life behaves down deep. After 3 years of trying, Japanese biologists finally hooked an elusive giant squid with an underwater video camera in 2005. It was swimming 900 meters below the surface. Before this footage, no one had ever seen a live giant squid swimming in the ocean, so far beyond the range of sunlight. These beasts have only been netted before or have washed up on beaches. And by giant, we're talking big. Giant squids can weigh up to 1,000 kilograms. The largest ever spotted measured a vast 18.5 meters and was found in 1880 off Island Bay in New Zealand. That's the length of 2 buses, but only the weight of a compact car. Every day, the oceans turn up a new clue as to what life is like on the ocean bottom. Scientists think that a clam recently dredged up off the coast of Iceland may be the longest-lived creature ever discovered. By counting rings on its shell, researchers calculated its age at between 405 and 410 years old. This clam was holding court at the time of Queen Elizabeth I and Shakespeare. The previous record age for a clam had maxed out at 220 years. Commonly known as the ocean quahog, the clam's super slow rate of cellular decay may provide clues to the secrets of longer life. We've only scratched the surface of what lies on the deep ocean floor. Who knows what more we'll find in the underwater world of our own planet.
Stay tuned. Even more cooler facts heading your way right after this break. Welcome back to Cooler Facts, the show that sheds light on science and nature by giving you tons of takeaway facts. Now here's a good one. What do you get when you cross a jellyfish with a pig? A piggy fish? A jelly pig? I don't know, but I do know it's just one of many creatures that glows in the dark.
Fireflies lighting up the evening sky are dazzling. Yet in nature, bioluminescence, the ability to glow in the dark, is more the rule than the exception. If you dragged a net in any part of the world's oceans, from a few hundred meters to the surface, almost 90% of the creatures you'd catch would be bioluminescent. Not only that, animals that glow travel in unimaginably large numbers, like the krill. This glow-in-the-dark crustacean is likely the most populous animal on Earth. It swarms in the waters of Antarctica in mobs of 2 million tons per 500 square kilometers. Krill are so prolific, biologists estimate their combined weight is greater than the human population of the world. Animals light up for very expected reasons: to find food, attract mates, and defend against predators. Question is, how do they light up? Bioluminescence is a chemical reaction that results in light without heat. It happens when a protein called luciferin comes together with the enzyme luciferase. Throw oxygen into the mix and you get oxyluciferin, a molecule-sized lantern. It's a favorite party trick of the jellyfish. Of all the jellyfish species, about half are bioluminescent. The most spectacular among them is this feathery, flamboyant creature, the siphonophore. Not only does it glow a fiery red, when under assault, it releases thousands of glowing particles, ones that mimic small plankton that confuse the attacker. Actually, the glow bestowed by nature isn't just pretty. It's lighting up the path to life-saving new discoveries. Which is why in 2006, researchers in Taiwan bred these bioluminescent pigs, created by adding genetic material from jellyfish to a pig embryo. Even their hearts and internal organs are fluorescent. These pigs were bred to study human disease. When the pig's stem cells are injected into another animal, scientists can track the progress of the cells without invasive surgery. Some plants are bioluminescent, including a species of mushroom called Omphilotus nidiformis, or ghost mushroom. It looks a lot like the oyster mushroom, but you don't want to confuse the two. Ghost fungus are toxic, which is a shame. If they were edible, Along with glowing lakes, tides, sea creatures, and flies, we'd have neon soups and omelets. Now that would be cool.
Coming up right after the break, a natural disaster so big it shook Earth off its axis. Hi, welcome back to Cooler Facts. Scientists have spent a lot of time building bombs and creating chemical explosions. But the truth is, Mother Nature packs the greatest punch. In fact, her secret recipe of tectonic plates and molten lava takes the cake.
It's easy to take the solid ground for granted until the odd rumble reminds us just how much power the Earth can unleash. One of the most bizarre results of an earthquake happened in 1811 in the state of Missouri. The magnitude 8 quake lifted up the land so high that it created a dam, causing part of the Mississippi River to temporarily flow backwards. Quakes measuring over 8 on the Richter scale happen on average about once a year. They release the same punch as a 1 gigaton bomb, or 5,000 times the size of the bomb dropped on Nagasaki at the end of World War II. So where does all that energy come from? Well, the Earth is like a pressure cooker, a hard external crust that floats over layers of molten hot rock or magma, ending with a solid rock core under intense pressure and heat. Geologists recently discovered that the solid iron core is actually revolving slightly faster than the surface of the Earth. It's like a planet within a planet. Over 120 years, the core completes one extra rotation. The surface of the Earth consists of large, brittle, 100-kilometer thick tectonic plates. The heat inside the Earth causes the plates to slowly but constantly move. Their collisions create seismic waves or ground vibrations, so powerful that they rip apart the Earth's crust. In 1935, physicist Charles Richter developed a method to measure and compare the magnitude of earthquakes, inventing the Richter scale. Going a whole number higher on the Richter scale is a 10-fold increase in the strength of the seismic vibrations. So while an 8 is strong, remember what a 9.1 can do. In 2004, off the coast of Indonesia, under the sea, a whopping 9.1 strength earthquake hit. It was so big that it shook the Earth off its axis by 1 centimeter and caused ripple vibrations as far away as Alaska. Back at the epicenter, the force of the earthquake caused a tsunami. It displaced a huge tabletop of ocean water. That's what set up the massive waves. In deep water, a tsunami's 30-meter waves can travel 800 kilometers per hour. That's like a 9-story building moving faster than a Learjet. All this natural fury is because of that pressure cooker of molten rock that sometimes blows in the form of a volcanic eruption. Molten rock or magma from as far below as 500 kilometers inside the Earth can seep up through cracks between tectonic plates, building up a mountain of rock. It then spews a volcano. Iceland is the largest volcanic island. Its entire surface was formed by eruptions from the mid-Atlantic ridge of volcanoes. Back in 1783, the Laki volcano erupted with a flood of lava that was 30 meters deep and 80 kilometers long. The worst volcanic eruption happened back in 1815, when Mount Tambora in Indonesia blew out 50 cubic kilometers of magma. It covered 500,000 kilometers of land and sea with 1 centimeter of ash. That's an area the size of Spain. In 1883, the volcano Krakatoa put so much dust into the Earth's atmosphere that sunsets appeared green and the moon appeared blue for almost 2 years. Turns out the tiny 1-micron ash particles scattered red light, but would allow other colors to pass. So the white moonlight shone through the clouds and appeared blue and sometimes green. Nothing stays still for long on this planet. Constantly shifting tectonic plates and the hot liquid core guarantee that there is no such thing as solid ground on this surface we call home.
Well, hopefully we won't be seeing any green sunsets or blue moons anytime soon. But we will be seeing another episode of Cooler Facts. We'll have submarines with swimming pools on them and everything you didn't know about space junk, all done up with our animated twist. Thanks for watching today. I'm Kim J. Kiani. I'm Kim Jake Tiani. Welcome to Cooler Facts, the show that's full of surprising facts about the world around us. Science, nature, and technology. The first surprise is the way this show looks. Not me, but the fun animated style you're about to see. Get ready for a fun, fast-paced tour of short video bits. Today, how long is the world's longest tunnel? Why would you need to coat a submarine with rubber? And which precious metal is virtually indestructible? But first, when it comes to space junk, what should we fear most? The size of it or its speed?
Space is one hostile environment. There's extreme temperatures, solar flares, and radiation to worry about. But did you know it's also a dangerous junkyard? Thousands of nuts, bolts, gloves, and other debris from space missions have formed an orbiting garbage dump around Earth. The good news? Most orbital debris is smaller than a tennis ball. The bad news? It's not the size that makes space junk so terrifying. It's the speed. Space junk hurls along at over 35,000 kilometers per hour. That's Mach 28, or 14 times faster than the Concorde at full tilt. Going that fast, the Concorde could jettison you from New York to London in less than 10 minutes. At that speed, a metal chip the size of a grain of rice would do as much damage to a spacecraft as a .22 caliber rifle bullet at point-blank range. Most orbital debris comes from space missions. Ed White wasn't just one of the first to take a spacewalk. He may have been the first to litter up there when he lost a spare glove outside his Gemini 4 craft. Ever since, astronauts have been adding to the mess, and it has a way of coming back to haunt them. A speck of paint made a 4mm crater on the windshield of the Space Shuttle orbiter. NASA technicians regularly replace windows in the crew cabin of the shuttle after hits from fast-flying junk. To protect itself, the shuttle now orbits backwards, which keeps delicate parts like its heat shield guarded against impacts. NASA has had to redirect the flight path of the shuttle over 8 times. That's an average of 1 in every 14 launches. But is space junk a threat to us down here on Earth? Most of it burns up on re-entry. Still, over the last 4 years, 5,400 metric tons of space junk fell to Earth. That's about the size of 450 city buses. Of all the stuff that fell in the last 4 decades, the 2001 plunge of the Mir space station accounts for a quarter of it. Space junk hasn't killed anyone yet, though in 1997, a piece grazed the shoulder of an Oklahoma woman, likely fallout from the launch of the Delta II rocket a year before. The odds of getting hit are about 1 in a trillion. You are way more likely to be hit by lightning. Twice. So how do we prevent a disastrous collision up there? Various agencies track orbital debris. They can launch a rocket at space junk to throw it into a different orbit. Maybe send it into the Earth's atmosphere, where it can burn up out of harm's way. Another solution? Stop littering up there. About 200 objects are added to space every year. In the meantime, space junk isn't the biggest threat to humankind. In fact, when it falls back to Earth, it behaves just like any other meteor, lighting up the sky like a falling star. So, make a wish.
I think my wish is no space junk fall on me. Down here on Earth, building tunnels is one of the star achievements in engineering. Here are some cooler facts you didn't know in the name of digging.
When it comes to digging tunnels, it seems no amount of soil, rock, clay, or mud can stand in our way. Every new tunneling obstacle pushes digging technology. In 400 BC, in the region of Cappadocia in central Turkey, workers used pickaxes to carve away at the volcanic rock, creating a network of underground caves. When foreign invaders attacked, up to 20,000 people would hide there. One of the true marvels of tunneling engineering happened in 1845, while building the first underwater tunnel that connected docks on both sides of London's Thames River. Burrowing through the soft clay and sand seemed impossible. It didn't hold like hard rock. Then engineer Mark Brunel solved that problem. He invented the tunnel shield, a moving 3-tiered scaffolding system. It allowed workers to carve out the soft clay and sand while quickly lining the tunneled area with bricks. This tunnel is still in use today as part of the London Underground's East Line. 150 years later, today's high-tech tools can tunnel through 250 meters of earth in 3 days. That's the length of 8 freight train cars. High in the Swiss Alps, it usually takes 4 hours for a train to twist and turn through the mountains from Zurich to Milan. To cut the trip in half, engineers decided to build a straight tunnel between the two cities. For passenger trains to hit 240 kilometers an hour, the tunnel's design must avoid inclines. Tracks must remain at 500 meters above sea level, the average elevation between both hubs. But in the mountains, 500 meters above sea level translates into 2,300 meters under the peaks. That's more than 3 times the depth of the super skyscraper, the Burj Dubai. When it's complete, the 57-kilometer St. Gothard Tunnel will be the longest in the world. The tunnel boring machine makes it possible. Its 15-meter-wide rotating circular plate with titanium teeth slowly slices rock, carving a 4-story-high cave. At the same time, the machine pumps grout into the cave walls for support before the actual tunnel lining is installed. Boring machines were also used to drill the 50-kilometer tunnel that includes the world's longest underwater tunnel segment at 37.9 kilometers, and the Seikan Tunnel in Japan, the world's longest tunnel overall at a whopping 53 kilometers. That's 2.5 times the entire length of Manhattan. But not all underwater tunnels are constructed by boring holes. They're made by sinking huge prefabricated blocks. In Boston's Big Dig construction project, engineers built huge airtight concrete segments in dry docks, then floated them out into the water, connected the pieces, and then flooded them to sink them into place. Finally, they were pumped dry. The longest of the 6 segments was 133 meters long, 56 meters wide, and 9 meters thick. That's bigger than a 9-meter thick soccer field. And engineers are already imagining a super underwater tunnel. Picture a 5,000-kilometer long tube that extends under the Atlantic from New York to London, designed for ultra-fast magnetically levitated trains. Who knows? Sometime in the future, there might be a light at the end of that tunnel, too.
A tunnel from New York to London? I don't think I'd enjoy that commute. After the break, it's off to Antarctica to see what surprise is buried deep within the ice. Really cold, cooler facts coming right up. I've lived in India for the last 8 years, and there's so much I love about it. The food, the colors, the energy. And there's one thing I never had to worry about: freezing weather. But even the dreaded cold is full of surprises.
Hate the long winter months? Before you start complaining, remember that severe cold is one of nature's greatest gifts. Thanks to ice, we have relics like Otzi, Europe's oldest mummy. He was discovered in 1991 in a glacier between Austria and Italy. Amazingly, researchers could identify his last meal: unleavened bread, herbs, and meat. They also discovered an arrowhead in his back and ruled his death a murder. Then there's a discovery of the Siberian Ice Maiden. In her frozen grave, her body was adorned in gold and silk, and she was surrounded by a team of horses. She is thought to be 24 centuries old. The coldest natural temperature ever recorded on Earth was in 1982, minus 90 degrees Celsius. That's colder than dry ice. It happened at Russia's Vostok Station in Antarctica. One of the coolest things buried deep in the ice there isn't even frozen. It's Lake Vostok. It's as big as Lake Ontario and plunges 5,000 meters below the ice surface. That's as deep as the CN Tower is tall, times 10. What keeps the waters thawed in the middle of all that ice? One factor is the pressure of the ice sheet above. The other is geothermal heat, or the warmth radiated from deep within the planet, originally generated during its formation. Freezing temperatures are so important to science that many believe they can be used to bring people back from the dead. As a result, there are over 140 human bodies and heads now cryogenically frozen in the US. Cost to freeze the whole body is $150,000. For just the head, it's $80,000. Cryogenics experts are confident that one day they'll have the technology to take the frozen and perfectly preserved cells and tissue and clone a body. The most famous person to be cryogenically preserved is baseball legend Ted Williams.
Play ball!
His head and body are stored in separate vats. Some say his son wanted to preserve the brain as a way of recycling DNA and hopefully recreating the athletic genes of one of the greatest all-time hitters. These days, surgeons can slowly lower a patient's body temperature until they are almost dead in order to operate on them. In 1990, they froze a 24-year-old patient into suspended animation. With his heart rate at 0, they could fix a broken vessel in the middle of his brain. Freezing a patient stops blood flow, giving doctors extra time to repair damaged tissue. So don't hate the cold. It makes life a lot more interesting. It could one day save your life. Perhaps one day bring you back to life.
Okay, so now I know why cold is important, but I'd still take a warm summer day anytime. In fact, I like flying to warm places to recharge the batteries. But some people are afraid of flying. I like what Loudon Wainwright once said, though. I'm not afraid of flying, I'm just afraid of crashing.
At any one time, there are about 3 million people flying around the globe. That's the equivalent of 9,000 jumbo jets full of passengers. With so many lives in the air, it's no surprise that engineers are constantly developing technology to make flying safe. The planes don't collide because every plane flies through the middle of its own private highway, one that's 16 kilometers wide. That's about 100 times wider than the widest highway on the ground. Sometimes, it's a horrific air crash that forces improvements in flying safety. Ever since the 1988 bombing of Pan Am Flight 103 over Lockerbie, Scotland, airports bombard baggage with radiation to detect the presence of nitrogen, the common denominator of explosives. The process is called thermal neutron analysis. Another technology we take for granted today was also the result of a well-known airline disaster. GPS, or Global Positioning Satellite technology, used to be the private domain of the American military. But in 1983, the Soviet Union shot down Korean Airlines Flight 007 because faulty navigation caused the plane to drift off course. GPS could have warned the crew of the error. U.S. President Ronald Reagan ordered the U.S. military to share its technology with the world. In 1988, Aloha Flight 243 made a routine flight that forever changed aviation inspection rules. When the Boeing 737 hit cruising altitude, a section of its roof ruptured. It took 1/10 of a second for the cabin to completely depressurize, and a giant chunk of the plane's fuselage tore away. Miraculously, the 88 passengers survived, and the plane landed safely. Investigators put the blame on the plane's astonishing number of flights, 89,000. The plane withstood 12 takeoffs and landings a day, every day for 19 years. Its lifetime limit was 75,000. As a result, today, for every hour in the air, a plane spends 12 hours with mechanics. Delta Flight 191, on approach to the Dallas-Fort Worth Airport, encountered violent up and down drafts. It caused the plane's speed to drop by 135 kilometers per hour. That sudden change in speed would be the equivalent of driving along the highway and hitting a brick wall. The plane crashed short of the runway. Since then, aircraft mechanisms have changed so pilots can switch to maximum speeds to dodge surprise weather attacks. As a result, wind shear-related accidents have all but vanished. If all this talk about plane crashes gives you the willies, rest assured, flying is safe. If you flew every day of your life, odds are it would take 19,000 years to actually experience a crash. In fact, flying is so safe, by the time you get to the airport, you've already completed the most dangerous part of the journey, the drive.
Now, from planes flying high to submarines on the ocean floor, what if I told you one of the most state-of-the-art subs is made from concrete? Cooler Facts will be right back. Welcome back to Cooler Facts. I'm Kim Jagtiani. If you want to wow or impress your friends with some really cool facts about the sharpest technology around, well, prepare to submerge yourself in the world of submarines.
Submarines are the cutting edge of marine technology. The largest sub ever built was the Soviet Typhoon-class sub. A fleet of 6 were made in 1981, each measuring 175 meters long. That's the length of 7 blue whales. It weighed 33,800 tons, 2.5 times the weight of the Titanic. Its outer hull housed 5 pressure hulls with some definitely unmilitary-like features: a sauna, a swimming pool, a gym, and a smoking lounge. And say goodbye to sunlight. It could stay submerged for 6 months, long enough to sail from the Pacific, under the Arctic ice shield, and then into the North Atlantic. The award for the deepest dive goes to a specially made research submersible that in 1960 descended to the deepest spot of the Pacific Ocean, almost 11 kilometers down. 2 sailors crammed into a 2-meter diameter pressure sphere with steel walls 12 centimeters thick. It had to withstand the deep ocean's crushing pressure, 1.17 tons per square centimeter, the equivalent force of a man balancing 3 Abrams tanks on his head. These days, modern nuclear subs have developed a number of tricks to reduce noise and avoid detection using, of all things, rubber? The hulls won't bounce, but most military subs are coated with rubber to make them less reflective to sonar. The coating consists of sound-absorbing tiles that contain thousands of tiny voids that also reduce the sub's noise trail. It's the same principle used in echo-proofing a music recording studio. To track subs using sound waves, surveillance planes also follow their heat. They use infrared detectors to track the large plumes of heat that fast nuclear-powered submarines leave while rising to the surface. Russian builders have been experimenting with the last material you'd think of for a submarine hull: concrete. Unlike conventional submarines that float until they take on water, the heavy concrete subs need 4 electric turbine pumps to stay afloat. Major navies are concerned. Because concrete becomes stronger under high pressure, these subs could dive below the standard 600 meters crush depth for steel hulls and hide on the rocky sea floor almost undetectable by sonar. Then they could launch torpedoes straight up at ships above. Talk about paving your way to a new world of undersea exploration.
You know, it must have taken some courage to propose the idea of a submarine made of concrete. Coming up right after the break, a metal that is way tougher than concrete and way more rare. More Cooler Facts right around the corner. It's been quite a show. We've traveled as high as space, we've been as low as the seafloor, and even traveled to remote Antarctica. Time to get a little grounded. Or shall I say, get something out of the ground.
Throughout human history, gold has been the ultimate prize for conquering empires, crafty bankers, and even athletes. What's the big draw? For one, gold is really and truly scarce. All the gold that we possess in the world amounts to a mere 140 million tons, barely enough to fill a fenced-in tennis court. The world produces more steel in a single hour. All the gold we dig out of the ground each year could fit in the average-sized living room. Gold is not just rare, it's almost indestructible. We know how iron rusts and copper tarnishes, but gold is one of the most chemically stable elements, which means it resists chemical changes. When exposed to oxygen, it won't oxidize. No rust, tarnish, or other physical degradations. That makes it about the most recycled metal around. More than 85% of all gold ever found is still in use today. Gold mined a century ago could be in your fillings right now. Gold is also extremely malleable. A lump the size of a domino could be flattened into a sheet the size of an Olympic swimming pool. You could roll out that amount into 80 kilometers of very thin wire. that would be 10 times thinner than a human hair. Gold is so rare and precious, people have tried to manufacture their own. The Soviets were somewhat successful, using nuclear reactions to transform lead nuclei into gold. But it took too much energy. Ever wonder where the expression acid test comes from? To test the presence of gold, jewelers used to dip items in nitric acid. Gold doesn't dissolve in nitric acid, hence the term acid test as the gold standard for genuine value. Mining gold these days is not so much about pickaxes as the chemistry of solvents. Gold is found in extremely low concentrations, buried and laced throughout huge chunks of solid iron ore. To get at the gold, the rock is pulverized, then doused with liquid cyanide, which dissolves the gold. Then the cyanide is neutralized, leaving behind pure gold for smelting. Sounds easy enough, but in order to get 1 measly ounce of gold, you need to grind up 30 tons of ore. At some mines, 100 tons of ore must be excavated for a single ounce of the stuff. Australians have developed a more efficient and environmental solution to liquid cyanide and open pit devastation. Researchers down under have discovered microorganisms that eat trace amounts of gold within rocks. They then deposit them into larger nuggets. The idea is to one day harness this fauna for easier extraction from the ground. If they succeed, the world will have a nice, chemical-free method for gold extraction. But it still doesn't solve the problem of the incredible shrinking supply.
Now I know where the expression acid test comes from. And we've come to the end of the show. Don't forget to look for more cooler facts next time. You'll be the life of the party. Thanks for watching. I'm Kim Jake Tiani.